We have lots of NHL news and rumors to take a look at here today, including some trade talk around the Toronto Maple Leafs and the future of Kirill Kaprizov in Minnesota. Could they be in danger of losing their star forward? We'll take a look at what's going on with him. Plus, we have lots of other news around the NHL as roster cuts were made to prepare for being cap compliant for 5 o'clock Eastern today. So we have lots of prospects that were cut and sent back to junior of the American League, some key injuries, and lots of signings as well, including a bunch in Toronto, signing in Vancouver, Minnesota, some other PTO information as well, and news from the waiver wire. All that coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots of news and rumors to take a look at here today. Of course, today is the day that NHL teams need to submit their opening night rosters and become cap compliant, which would have been due a couple hours ago at 5 o'clock Eastern time. So all teams have had to do that, and there's lots of moves here in the past day or two preparing for that time. So in case you missed it earlier, I do have a video out on it, but just to quickly recap, we saw some more activity on the NHL waiver wire. We had 5 players be claimed on waivers today, including a reclaim of Vancouver taking back goaltender Jiri Patera, who they had lost to Boston not long ago, but he was basically an insurance ad for more depth with Jeremy Swayman not being signed. But now that Swayman has got his contract in place, they don't need him, so they put him back on waivers, and Vancouver took him back. So he's rejoined the Canucks and will join their AHL team. Vegas claimed 2 players today, both young players, one from Edmonton, one from Calgary, Cole Schwindt from the Flames, Raphael Lavoie from the Edmonton Oilers. Neither one of them have a lot of NHL experience, but have spent enough time in the minors that, you know, I guess I guess some teams might look at them as being NHL already, or at least worth an opportunity. So we'll see how things work out there. The Blue Jackets claimed Zach Aston Reese. He was on waivers from Vegas. So Aston Reese joins the Blue Jackets. So we've been saying for quite a while now that the Jackets wanted to add at least a couple of new forwards. They've done so recently. They just signed Kevin LeBanc in the past couple of days, and then they got Aston Reese here today. So that should kind of solve that issue for the time being. Anaheim picked up goaltender James Reimer, who had signed with the Sabres, was on waivers with them. So the Ducks, of course, are going to be without John Gibson for about a 6-week recovery. He's probably, a week or more into that now, I believe, a week and a half. So he's going to probably miss the first month of the season or thereabouts. So they could use some extra insurance on the goaltending side of it. So Reimer comes through on the waiver wire and they pick him up. So I'm not sure how long Reimer will stay in Anaheim after Gibson's return, but he'll certainly be there for the time being. And of course, I did do a video this morning as well, outlining 3 signings from the Toronto Maple Leafs. They were quite busy getting deals done for Max Pacioretty and Stephen Lawrence, as well as extending young defenseman Cade Weber. Weber did not make the team at a training camp. He'll play for the Marlies to at least start this season, but he did get a 2-year extension as well. And in the second year of the 2 years, it's a one-way deal. So they kind of have like a 3-year development plan here for Weber that in this year and next year, he could still be, either in the Marlies or in a call-up option, not guaranteed NHL time or money, but in 2 years from now, he would be. So, they see him as being part of the plan longer term and need some time to develop. Stephen Lawrence got a 1-year deal at league minimum, and Max Pacioretty signed a 1-year deal, a little bit more complicated with him. He got a salary plus performance bonuses. The total is $1.5 million. The salary is a little over $800K, but the bonuses are worth about just over $600,000. The two combined add up to 1.5. So he'll get a games played bonus at 10 games and at 35, just over $300K a piece. So with Pacioretty, as long as he plays 35 games, he'll earn the 1.5, but his cap hit will only be like the 837 or 840 or whatever it worked out to right now, and the rest of it will be bonus money, which can be tacked on at the end of the season. If they don't have available space at the end of the year, then they'll get a bonus penalty, which will count towards next year. Some other signings around the league that have taken place here in the last 24 hours or so as well. The Vancouver Canucks extended young forward Nils Hoglander. He gets a 3-year deal at $3 million average annual value. So obviously Hoglander has kind of secured a spot here. It's a 3-year extension. That'll keep him playing top 9 minutes in the Canucks lineup here for the foreseeable future. So he's had a nice development here in the past year or so. Had a good season last year, and hopefully This will be the team showing their confidence that he can continue to kind of build upon that. Utah signed Kyler Yamamoto. He was there in a PTO. It's a 1-year, 2-way deal, so not guaranteed NHL money, but at least he'll be an option. Washington Capitals signed Jacob Vrana. Of course, Vrana was there on a PTO looking to return to the Capitals. He gets a 1-year deal at league minimum and gets the final roster spot. Minnesota today announced that they're extending young goaltender Jesper Wallstedt. Wallstedt gets a 2-year extension at $2.2 million. So obviously that'll kick in next year. We know this is the final year of Marc-Andre Fleury. He'll be retiring at the end of the year. So next year will be either Gustafsson and Wallstedt or Wallstedt and maybe somebody else. A lot of that's going to be determined by Gustafsson's play this year. I know last year was a down year for him. If he doesn't rebound, I would suspect that the Wild will probably look to move on and bring in another goalie to work with Wallstedt. But either way, this young goaltender who has lots of potential, they get him at 2 more years at $2.2 million. Seems pretty reasonable if he's going to be playing a bigger role by the time the contract actually kicks in. We also got a signing today in Detroit. They signed Austin Watson, who was there on a PTO as well. Again, a 1-year, 2-way deal, and he is on waivers today. So he's the only new player on waivers, so he can be assigned in Grand Rapids if need be, once that clears tomorrow afternoon. One other PTO update. Obviously, a bunch of these turned to contracts, but Carolina did release Sam Gagner, who was there in training camp as well, from his PTO. So that one did not work out for him. Some notable prospects that were cut from rosters and sent back to junior or the American Hockey League. The Florida Panthers today reassigned goaltender Spencer Knight to the American Hockey League. I really thought he was more likely to make that roster this year. So I'll be curious to see how things work out for him. Maybe this is more of a cap situation. Obviously they get a little cap relief from his contract by him going down to the AHL, but certainly you hope that it can be a year that he takes a big step this year, or, it might not be looking good for his long-term viability there. Some other notable prospects that were notified or sent to junior or the AHL today. A lot of Sens fans thought Carter Yakimchuk was going to make the team because yesterday when they made their final cuts and put players on waivers, he was still there. And it was looking like Yakimchuk was going to get a chance to play at least a few games at the start of the year, then maybe go back to junior, but they did make the difficult decision today to send him back to the Western Hockey League's Calgary Hitmen today. Yakimchuk will be a huge piece for them down the road. He had a terrific training camp, was one of the top players in all of camp, not just amongst the younger players. Led the team in scoring because he played a lot of preseason games, but certainly had an offensive flair from what he did, including a beautiful overtime winner. Made a great impression. I know they're hoping to see him go to the World Juniors with Team Canada, and should be a huge year of development for him. And I would think next year his chances of making the team will be much, much better. But certainly he made it really, really difficult on him, but ultimately they decided that that's what's best for him, which is the right decision, I think, at the end of the day. It would have been nice just with all his hard work, I think, just to get a couple of NHL games experience, just to give him a small taste of it in the regular season. But long term, it's definitely the right move. Easton Cowan of the Toronto Maple Leafs has been sent back to the London Knights of the OHL as well. I really thought he might have a real good shot at making the Leafs. This is not really a major down moment for him at all. Cowan still has another year of junior eligibility and can dominate. He had a big year last year, so he should be able to dominate even more. Again, like Yakimchuk, be a big part of Team Canada, the World Juniors, and we'll see. But Cowan, I know a lot of Leaf fans, I think, thought might have a shot to grab a top 9 role, but just didn't quite work out with all the extra players they brought in towards training camp with Pacioretty and Lawrence and all those guys. Kind of took up too many spots. Jackson Blake in Carolina was reassigned to the American Hockey League. Nashville and Tanner Molendyk, he was sent back to the Western Hockey League Saskatoon Blades. The Winnipeg Jets have sent Brad Lambert to the AHL. He had a really good camp. I kind of wonder if he might be recalled soon, though, and given an opportunity. I think Lambert will get a decent amount of NHL games this year. Montreal made the difficult choice of demoting Logan Mailloux and Joshua Waugh to the American Hockey League. Joshua Waugh didn't have the greatest camp, kind of played himself out of a spot. Obviously, they do have a lot of veterans that I know some of the fan base there would like to see moved on from, to stop taking up roster spots from some of these guys. But I mean, at the same time, you do need some vets in the lineup. But I don't think Joshua Waugh did himself any favors with his performance in camp this year. But if he can go down to the American Hockey League and kind of show that he's going to take it the right way and will continue to work hard and produce, then he'll get another opportunity, I'm sure. In Washington, they sent Ivan Mironishenko to the American Hockey League, so he'll start down there. He got a couple call-ups last year and made the best of it. Angel Crystal, one of their top prospects as well, is going to be going back to the Western Hockey League's Kelowna Rockets. So, again, Crystal had a good camp. They certainly made a difficult choice and thought that might be what's best for him as well. Some injury updates. Boone Jenner, captain of the Blue Jackets. Like, the Blue Jackets haven't had enough, things to happen to this team. Boone Jenner sounds like he's going to be out for an extended time. We don't know the exact full extent of everything, but Elliot Friedman on his podcast today was saying that he doesn't like the sounds of things from what he's been hearing out of Columbus, and it sounds like the injury that he suffered in practice a few days ago could be rather serious and could keep him out long term. It sounds like he's kind of seeking a second opinion before making a decision. I would imagine they probably want to decide if surgery is needed or not or anything like that. So, again, we don't know the exact extent or, the full details of the injury, but just that it sounds like it could be serious and he could be out for an extended time, which is certainly not good news at all. The Calgary Flames are going to be without their top goal scorer from last year, Sharon Govich. Sharon Govich is going to be out of the lineup. He's on injured reserve and listed as week to week, so he'll probably miss at least the first handful of games or more for the Flames season. And Elliot Friedman also had some updates today on Vancouver Canucks goaltender Thatcher Demko, saying that it's likely, of course, it's a guarantee at this point, they're going to start the year with obviously Lankinen and Sheloffs between the pipes, probably going on a pretty solid 50-50 rotation, I would think. But there's no timeline on Demko's return. We know that we had heard in the offseason that he was still recovering from the knee, leg injury that he was dealing with in the playoffs, and that he probably wouldn't be ready to start the season. It's a really weird injury. That's not a common one from what we've been told, and there's no timeline right now. It sounds like they're really planning to take their time. They know that they're going to need Demko when it matters most, late in the season into the playoffs. And if he misses, a number of weeks or months to start the year, I think they're feeling comfortable to be able to do that and take their time and not rush him, because I do think it's fair to say he may have been rushed a bit back before, which is ultimately why, to at least some of the degree, why they're in this mess in the first place. So Demko will be out for we don't know how long, but I know some people think that he's that they can only go as far as he can take them. I would argue differently. I do think he's a very important piece. And, is the pressure going to be there for Lankinen or Sheloffs to obviously play very well? Absolutely will be. Will they be heavily scrutinized considering, the pedigree of Demko? Yes, I think that's fair to say too. And if they do struggle early on, the pressure is going to mount. But I do think that both guys showed before, especially Sheloffs in the playoffs last year, that they can play some big moments. So the Canucks are a pretty good team on paper. I would think that they can probably weather the storm and still hang around the top three of the division and still be in a good spot whenever Demko does return. But there's no doubt he's the best goalie they have. And are they as good a team without him? No, not quite, but I don't think it's reason to panic either. So we'll see how things go on that front. Now, on the trade front, today I want to take a look at a couple of teams, one being Minnesota. Lots of talk around Kirill Kaprizov. Now, we had touched on this a few weeks ago after comments that were made by Chicago Blackhawks beat writer Mark Lazarus of The Athletic, talking about how at the 2024 NHL draft, there was a lot of speculation and rumors going around that Kaprizov wanted to eventually play in Chicago, and that was one of the destinations he was heavily interested in when his next contract comes up. Of course, he has he still has 2 years left, so he's got the current one and then one more. So he's eligible for a contract extension this coming off season, right? So after this year, he's going to have some decisions to make. Does he re-sign and look to do another long-term deal with the Minnesota Wild, or does he hold off on signing, see how things go, and maybe consider exploring the market the summer after? Basically what Lazarus was talking about was that there's a lot of talk that he may want to explore free agency, and that Chicago, no guarantee that's where he goes, but that there was, some intriguingness, or, it was intriguing for him to consider playing there, I guess is all you could say. So is it really, far from a guarantee? It's certainly far from anything that it happens. It's just something that he's heard that the young player is thinking about. So what Elliotte Friedman talked about this on his podcast today, saying that, obviously the Minnesota Wild, it's possible that they might have a tough time keeping him. And essentially, he feels like in order to keep him and convince him to extend next summer, their play this year is going to play a big role in it, and the development and chemistry with the younger players on the team. Obviously, they do have some, other young, interesting players that are going to be a part of this team's future. Obviously, they have a few older players too, like all teams do. But Kaprizov is young enough that he could be a part of the core and a part of the main kind of young group of scoring players on this team for years to come if he decides to stay. Now, of course, what Friedman was getting at, though, is that it sounds like Kaprizov, I don't think there's any gripes about playing in Minnesota. I don't think it's that he doesn't like his teammates or doesn't like the city or the state. I don't think it sounds like anything like that. To me, this sounds like a chance where he just really wants a chance to win. And at this point, his time in Minnesota has been very much up and down. They've been inconsistent, and I think that's the biggest thing that's kind of, made him maybe a little bit uncertain about his future, but it's still quite a ways out, so there's lots of time to decide. But essentially what Friedman's saying is that he feels like the Minnesota Wild are going to have to do a lot of hard work in convincing that Minnesota is where he should stay. And that might have to come from not only the team's performance, but a lot of it from the team's younger players. Their development and his confidence in the future of the team might play a large role in his decision. So obviously a bad season in Minnesota is something that might really complicate his future and complicate their ability to re-sign the Russian player. So it's hard to say, but he's going to be a player to watch, according to what Friedman's saying. His sources are just saying it's a situation very much worth monitoring, and that how things play out this year could have a major implication on his decision on what he's going to do with his next contract. Now in Toronto as well, I want to take a look at some information from The Athletic and writer Jonas Seigel. Jonas talking about some of the moves we may see with the Leafs. Obviously, they've got their opening night roster set. They're carrying some multiple extra defensemen. And the name that comes out that's most likely attempting to be moved right now is defenseman Timothy Liljegren. Now, he goes on the article to explain why, but at the same time kind of play devil's advocate as really should they be doing so. But it seems like based on training camp, that certainly a player like Connor Timmins is going to probably be playing ahead of him to start. At least that's the way it looks. And if and when Jani Hakanpää is able to join the lineup, because he's starting the year on injured reserve, that he would be expected to play ahead of him as well. So that kind of really bumps Liljegren down after maybe not the greatest training camp, or at least not the greatest impression on head coach Craig Berube, manager Brad Treliving. So clearly, he signed a 2-year contract at $3 million a season in the off season, and right now I don't know that the Leafs are overly thrilled with the performance they got to go along with that contract. So it might complicate him being traded, but I guess the devil's advocate argument here is that given the injury history of some of the other right shot D that are on this team, like Hakanpää and like Chris Tanev, Tanev's a great defenseman, but he does sometimes get injured and miss a decent amount of time because of the way he plays. It's, he's a warrior out there. He's blocking shots, playing very physical, and he does get hurt. It's just the nature of how he plays, and you got to respect that, and it's just a risk that comes with Tanev being in your lineup, but you'd rather have him there doing all those things to take that chance than not. But, given the age difference between Liljegren compared to those two guys and their injury histories, is it prudent of the team to trade him when, if they do that, they might be kind of going, okay, and shortly down the road, if those guys get hurt, then what do they do? Then you're going to somebody with even less experience from your farm team, or you're trying to make a trade or a waiver claim or something else, and it just could complicate things. So should they be patient and wait is certainly a big question mark here. So we'll have to see where things go. But right now, he's pretty low in the depth chart, and they are seriously out there looking for Liljegren trade opportunities. Another name that he mentions as well, that he feels when everybody's healthy, could be David Kampf. I know we've heard about Järnkrok. I don't know if the interest right now is there, given the fact that he's been injured. That might take some time to move, but obviously Kampf is another player that, with his contract for the 4C role, the fact that he's got multiple years and money, it could be complicated, but I mean, he's a good defensive center. He just doesn't typically give you a whole lot of offense. But, Kampf is a player that when everybody's healthy, he feels that could be expendable. And between Kampf and Järnkrok, I don't think both those guys finish the season in Toronto. One of them very much likely does move. That would not be the least bit surprising. Liljegren, on the other hand, wouldn't be surprising either. But like I said, they probably should be a little bit cautious with that. If they can play a little bit of the season first to, kind of see how the other guys fit. I don't think Tanev is at risk of going anywhere, but they got to maybe wait and get Hakanpää off injured reserve, see can he play, can he stay healthy, maybe before they jump the gun here. Hard to say how quickly these things materialize, but those names are out there for the Leafs as they're going to end up running into cap and roster issues in the not too distant future as the players starting the year on injured reserve become healthy and are eligible to rejoin the lineup. So let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.